They didn't want me because they loved me. They wanted me because they were hungry. For years, I was the invisible wolf, the one the alpha rejected because I brought nothing to the table. He walked away from our bond with a sneer, leaving me to survive on the fringes of a pack that treated my presence like an inconvenience. I was the girl who didn't matter, until the night the moon turned copper bright and the earth itself began to scream my name. Suddenly, I wasn't an outcast anymore. I was an awakened asset. The same elders who once looked through me are now circling me like vultures, their eyes gleaming with calculation. They don't see a woman, they see a weapon. And the alpha who couldn't wait to be rid of me? He's now the first one in line, offering forgiveness as if his approval is a prize I should still want. He's realized that the power I've awakened is the only thing that can save his failing reign. But they forgot one thing. You can't cage a storm you've already released. If you've ever been ignored until you became useful, if you've watched people only value you when they realize what they could gain from you, stay with me. Because the entire pack is coming to claim me, but they're about to find out that awakened doesn't just mean powerful. It means done. I'm not their secret weapon. I'm their reckoning. If you love rejected mate tension, pack politics, and forgiveness that comes at a brutal cost, subscribe now and stay to the end. This story isn't about being wanted. It's about choosing who deserves you. She didn't know how she escaped the circle, only that the forest swallowed her like a held breath finally released. Branches tore at her cloak as she ran, lungs burning, heart slamming against her ribs. Behind her, shouts rose, orders snapping into place, hunters fanning out with terrifying efficiency. They weren't chasing to kill, they were chasing to secure. Her wolf surged alongside her now, no longer dim, no longer quiet. It ran with purpose, senses flaring wide, guiding her feet away from traps laid long before she'd ever been considered important. They've always known how to hunt, it snarled. They just never thought to use it on you. The realization cut deep. She burst through a line of old boundary stones and skidded to a halt as the pressure hit. Not resistance, but recognition. The land here felt older, heavier, as if it remembered things the pack had tried to forget. She staggered forward, palms grazing a standing stone carved with worn runes. The world inhaled. Her breath steadied. The frantic pounding in her chest slowed, replaced by something colder and clearer. Awareness spread outward, not explosive, not violent, but absolute. She felt the hunters approaching, felt the alpha at their center, felt the way his dominance strained against something that refused to yield. "This is mine," she whispered. The stone warmed beneath her hand. Behind her, the forest quieted. The hunters broke through the tree line and froze. Not because she threatened them, because the land did not answer their presence anymore. The alpha stepped forward alone, breath tight, eyes dark with realization. "You crossed into forbidden ground," he said. "No," she replied, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I crossed into choice." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unspoken. "They want you back," he said. She laughed bitterly. "Of course they do." "I came alone," he added quietly. "For me," she asked. He hesitated. "For forgiveness," he said at last. The word hung between them, fragile, dangerous, unfinished, and for the first time since the moon had turned copper bright, the entire pack waited on her decision. The forest did not let them follow her, not fully. Branches closed ranks behind her as she fled, roots lifting just enough to trip the hunter too fast, shadows thickening where pursuit should have been easy. It wasn't protection in the way warriors understood it. It was permission withdrawn. She felt it the moment she crossed the last of the boundary stones. The pack's dominance slammed forward instinctively and scattered like breath against stone. She turned slowly, chest heaving, fingers still pressed to the rune-carved marker. The world around her had gone unnervingly still. Leaves hung motionless. Even the night insects had fallen silent, as if the land itself were holding a breath it refused to release. The hunters burst from the tree line and stopped short. Not one of them stepped closer. They looked unsettled, not afraid of her, but of the absence where their power should have echoed. "She can't command this place," one muttered. "I'm not commanding anything," she replied hoarsely. "I'm standing." The alpha emerged last. He moved without urgency, cloak torn from the chase, breath steady in a way that set him apart from the others. His dominance was restrained now, contained not by effort, but by respect for something he could not overpower. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. She laughed, the sound brittle. "You didn't want me anywhere until I mattered." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair," he said. "No," she shot back. "It's accurate." The hunters shifted behind him, uneasy. Their instincts told them to advance, to surround, to claim, to bring her back where she could be managed. The land did not allow it. "This place is forbidden," the Alpha said, not as a threat, but as fact. "The old treaties were written by Alphas who wanted ownership," she interrupted, "not consent." The rune beneath her hand pulsed faintly, warmth spreading into her palm. Her wolf lifted its head, eyes bright and sharp. "They don't get to decide anymore." The Alpha noticed the shift. His gaze flicked from her face to the stone, then back again. Understanding settled slowly, painfully. "You didn't just awaken," he said. "You aligned." The word hit something deep in her chest. "Yes," she whispered, "and now they want me caged." A murmur rippled through the hunters. "We want to protect you," one insisted. The pack needs to stop deciding my body as a resource," she snapped. Silence fell hard and heavy. The Alpha turned slightly, raising one hand, not in command, but restraint. The hunters stilled immediately, the old reflex still intact, even as their authority failed to reach her. "Go back," he told them. "I'll handle this." Some bristled, others looked relieved. "You can't leave her here," an elder's voice called from the back. "She belongs to the pack." The Alpha closed his eyes briefly. "No," he said firmly. "She belongs to herself." The words landed like a crack through stone. The hunters withdrew reluctantly, one by one, eyes never leaving her as they melted back into the forest. Their desire to claim her did not vanish, but it paused, thwarted by something they could not name. When the last of them disappeared, the quiet deepened. Only the Alpha remained. "You could have stopped them earlier," she said, bitterness bleeding through. "You didn't." "I didn't understand," he admitted. She barked out a laugh. "You understood enough to reject me." His gaze held steady. "Yes, and I was wrong." The admission did not bring relief. It brought anger. "You don't get to be right now," she said. "Not after what they tried to do." "I'm not asking to be right," he replied. "I'm asking to be honest." He took a careful step closer. The land tightened, not pushing him back, but marking the limit of his approach. He stopped immediately. "I won't cross without your consent," he said quietly. The restraint startled her more than any dominance ever had. "For seasons," she said, voice shaking despite her effort, "I was invisible. Now I'm valuable. That doesn't feel like redemption." "No," he agreed. "It feels like exploitation." She stared at him, searching for the familiar arrogance, the quiet certainty that had once dismissed her so easily. It wasn't there. "What do you want?" she asked. He hesitated, then lowered his head slightly, an old gesture of accountability rarely used among alphas. "To protect you from them," he said, "and to accept whatever judgment you decide I deserve." Her wolf went still. "This is dangerous." "Yes," she replied softly, "because it's almost believable." She stepped away from the stone at last, the warmth fading gently as she did. The land did not recoil, it watched. "If you want forgiveness," she said, meeting his gaze fully, "you don't get to decide what it looks like." He nodded once. "I know. And if the pack comes again," she continued, "I won't run." "I won't let them take you," he said immediately. "Good," she replied, "because next time I won't be standing alone." The boundary stones hummed faintly, not in threat, but acknowledgement. She turned away from him then, walking deeper into the forbidden ground without looking back. The Alpha remained where he was, realizing too late that forgiveness was not a thing to be claimed. It was something to be earned and possibly never received. She did not go far. The forbidden ground opened into a shallow vale where the trees stood older and wider apart, their roots lifting stone as if the earth itself had chosen to surface. She stopped near a fallen trunk, breath finally slowing, and pressed her palm to the bark. The warmth returned, not urgent, not possessive, steady. Her wolf paced once, then settled beside her, ears flicking toward the forest's edge. He didn't follow. "No," she said quietly. "He's waiting. Waiting is new for him." "Yes," she agreed. "That's why I don't trust it yet." She sank onto the trunk and let the night close around her. The hunter's sense lingered faintly, threaded with frustration and desire. They would not give up easily. They had tasted the idea of her value, and hunger rarely released its grip without consequence. The land felt it too. A low hum threaded through the roots beneath her feet, not a warning, but a preparation, as if the veil were bracing to be chosen again. She closed her eyes and breathed, careful not to reach outward. The last thing she wanted was to become an anchor others could exploit. They will come back, her wolf said. Yes, and they will bring reasons. She smiled without humor. They always do. By morning, the pack had reorganized. She sensed it in the way the forest tightened beyond the boundary stones, patterns of movement changing, patrols rerouting, dominance clustering where it used to sprawl. The alpha had done what he promised. He had kept them back. For now. She rose with the sun and walked the vale, learning its contours. There were old markers here, half buried and cracked, carved with agreements no longer enforced. She traced one with her fingers and felt a whisper of memory pass through her skin. Wolves standing shoulder to shoulder without ranks. Decisions made slowly, with listening. This place remembers, she murmured. Her wolf nodded. That's why they fear it. A presence approached near midday. Not the alpha, not the hunters. Elders. 3 of them crossed the boundary stones together, careful and deliberate, their dominance folded inward. They stopped at the edge of the vale and waited. She did not go to them. If they wanted her, they could meet her without entitlement. After a long while, the eldest stepped forward alone. The land tightened slightly, measuring intention. She passed. We came to speak, the elder said, voice even, not to command. You came because you couldn't force me back, she replied. The elder inclined her head. Yes. Honesty again, dangerous and rare. You belong to the pack, the elder continued. But we understand now that belonging cannot be taken. A murmur stirred behind her, agreement, not enthusiasm. And what do you want, she asked. To understand the cost, the elder said, if we let you remain unclaimed. The question cut sharp. You don't pay a cost for letting me exist, she said. You pay it for trying to own me. The land hummed faintly in affirmation. The elder closed her eyes briefly. The pack fears losing you. She laughed, soft and bitter. You never had me. Silence stretched. Then what do you want? The elder asked again, carefully this time. She considered the veil, the stones, the old agreements pressing gently against her awareness. I want space, she said, and time, and the right to refuse without consequence. That will fracture us, another elder warned. Yes, she agreed, because you're already fractured. You've just been pretending otherwise. The elders exchanged glances. No dominance flared. No challenge rose. At last, the eldest nodded. We will withdraw our claim. The words felt heavy, unfinished. For now, she added. Yes, the elder agreed. For now. They turned back toward the boundary stones, the land easing its tension as they crossed. Her wolf exhaled. They didn't like that. No, she replied, but they heard it. The alpha came at dusk. He stopped at the stones and waited, exactly as he had before. The forest did not tighten around him. It did not welcome him either, neutral. She approached slowly and stopped several paces away. They spoke to you, he said. Yes? And they learned a new word, she replied. No. A faint smile flickered at the corner of his mouth, then vanished. That will not sit well with them. It doesn't need to, she said, only to hold. He studied her carefully. They will test this, push boundaries, look for weakness. I know. And if they do, she met his gaze steadily, then we'll see whether your restraint is real. The challenge was quiet but unmistakable. He inclined his head. Fair. They stood in silence for a moment, the space between them unclaimed. I didn't come to ask forgiveness today, he said finally. I came to tell you something. She waited. They want to declare you a protected asset, he continued, a resource under Alpha law. Her jaw tightened. I was afraid of that. I blocked it, he said. For now. For now, she echoed. Yes, he admitted, because I don't yet have the authority to dismantle that thinking. She nodded slowly. Then don't pretend you do. The land hummed quiet approval. I won't, he said. When he turned to leave, he paused. They will try to make you choose between safety and autonomy. She watched his retreating form. I choose neither. He did not look back. That night, she dreamed of hands reaching, not to harm, but to hold. She woke before fear could take shape and sat with her back against the stone, breathing until dawn softened the veil. The pack wanted her. The alpha sought forgiveness. But the land waited for something else entirely. and she was beginning to understand that forgiveness, like belonging, could not be demanded. It could only be offered when the cost had finally been paid. The pack did not sleep that night. She felt it in the restless currents moving beyond the veil, in the way dominance rose and fell without ever settling. Wolves argued in low voices. Elders weighed risks aloud for the first time in years. Hunters paced routes they had memorized since youth, now uncertain where authority truly ended. She sat against the stone until dawn, listening without reaching. Her wolf remained alert but calm. They're afraid of losing control. Yes, she whispered, and afraid of what happens if they don't. Fear made people inventive. By mid-morning, the first test came, not with force but generosity. A delegation arrived bearing food, blankets, and offers wrapped carefully in concern. They stopped at the boundary stones and waited, respectful, patient. She approached slowly, eyes steady. "We brought supplies," one of the hunters said. "Winter's coming." "I can hunt," she replied, "and the land provides." A murmur of discomfort passed through the group. "It's only meant to help," an elder added gently. She studied them. "Help usually has strings." "Not this time," the elder insisted. The land tightened, just slightly. She nodded once. "Then leave it at the stones." They hesitated, then complied, setting the bundles down carefully before retreating. The moment they crossed back over, the warmth faded from the offerings. Her wolf sniffed cautiously. They wanted gratitude. "Yes," she said, "and leverage." She left the supplies untouched. By afternoon, frustration replaced concern. Hunters began circling wider, testing paths, watching how the land responded when they approached from different angles. Each time, the same thing happened. The forest did not block them, did not attack them. It simply stopped answering. Scent trails dulled. Urgency bled away. Steps slowed as if the ground itself refused to hurry. The pack learned a second lesson that day. Force was not the only thing that could fail. The alpha returned at dusk, posture tighter than before. "They're pushing," he said without preamble. "Not openly, yet." "I know," she replied. "They're afraid you'll leave." She laughed quietly. "They were never afraid of losing me before." He did not argue. "They want you to declare loyalty," he continued, "publicly, something symbolic they can point to. And if I don't, they'll escalate." The words settled heavy. She stood and walked a few paces into the veil, letting the land respond naturally. The hum deepened, steady and unyielding. "I won't kneel for them," she said, "and I won't be paraded as proof of their benevolence." "I wouldn't ask that," he said quickly. She met his gaze. "You wouldn't. They will." He nodded, jaw tight. "Yes." They stood in silence, neither claiming the space between them. "Why are you still here?" she asked suddenly. He hesitated. "Because if I leave, they'll come for you without restraint. And if you stay, then they have to go through me," he replied simply. The admission carried weight, not dominance, but responsibility. Her wolf watched him closely. "He's changing." "Yes," she murmured. "But change doesn't erase damage." "I know," the alpha said softly. "That's why I'm not asking you to trust me." She considered that. Good. The escalation came at nightfall. A ritual circle flared to life on the pack grounds beyond the boundary stones, old runes glowing as elders invoked ancestral law. The pressure surged outward, testing the veil's edges like a tide pressing against rock. Her breath caught as the hum beneath her feet deepened. Not straining, not resisting. Holding. "They're invoking claim," she said. "Yes," the alpha replied grimly. "Old law. Dangerous law. What happens if it holds? Then they can justify binding you for the good of the pack." Her wolf snarled, hackles rising. "We won't let them." "No," she whispered, "we won't." She stepped forward, not toward the ritual, but deeper into the veil. The land responded instantly, roots tightening, air thickening with ancient awareness. She raised her voice, not in command, but clarity. "I refuse," she said. The words echoed, not loudly, but completely. The ritual faltered. Runes flickered. Elders cried out in confusion as the circle dimmed, power draining away without backlash. The land did not attack the ritual. It simply withdrew consent. The alpha stared, stunned. "You just broke ancestral law." "No," she said evenly. "I reminded it who it was meant to protect." Silence fell heavy and stunned across the forest. Beyond the boundary stones, the pack reeled, not injured, not punished, disarmed. Fear spread not of her power, but of its implications. If law could refuse them, what else might? The alpha lowered himself slowly to one knee, not in dominance, not in spectacle, in acknowledgement. I won't let them do this again, he said quietly, even if it costs me my position. She watched him carefully. Forgiveness doesn't look like this, she said. I know, he replied. This is penance. The land hummed faintly. Not approval, not condemnation. Witness. She turned away from him and returned to the stone, sitting as night closed in. The pack wanted her. The law tried to take her. The alpha stood between, and for the first time, she could see what it might actually cost him to keep doing so. Forgiveness was no longer theoretical. It was becoming expensive. The ritual circle did not reignite. That, more than its failure, unsettled the pack. She felt the aftermath ripple outward through the forest, confusion thickening, dominance scrambling for footing that no longer existed. Elders argued in low, frantic tones. Hunters prowled without purpose, scenting the air as if the answer might be hidden in bark and soil. The old laws had always answered them, until now. She remained seated at the stone, spine straight, palms resting lightly against the earth. The hum beneath her felt steady, not triumphant, not strained, patient. Her wolf lay beside her, eyes half-lidded. They don't know what to do when the rules don't obey. No, she murmured. They never learned. The alpha rose slowly from his knee, expression carved from resolve rather than pride. He did not step closer. He did not try to speak first. That restraint mattered more than any vow. They'll regroup, he said quietly at last. Fear makes them stubborn. Fear makes them cruel, she replied, and clever. Yes, he agreed. That's what worries me. He turned his gaze toward the boundary stones, where faint movement betrayed watchers who no longer trusted stillness. They'll try another angle. What kind? She asked. He hesitated. Public pressure. Narrative. If they can't bind you by law, they'll try to bind you by guilt. Her mouth curved into a humorless smile. They've had years of practice. The attempt came the next morning. She sensed it before voices carried, an unusual gathering at the edge of the forbidden ground. Not hunters this time. Families, young wolves, even elders who had never stepped beyond the safety of pack grounds. They did not cross the stones. They waited. She stood slowly, heart heavy, and walked toward them until the land marked the boundary clearly beneath her feet. A mother stepped forward first, eyes tired rather than hostile. We're afraid, she said plainly. The pack is splintering. Another voice followed. We need stability. A third, sharper. You're the reason everything's breaking. The words struck but did not wound. I didn't make it fragile, she said evenly. I stopped holding it together for you. A murmur rippled through the crowd. You could fix this, someone insisted. If you just came back, let us protect you, guide us. The temptation was sharp and treacherous. Her wolf tensed. They want you to carry the cost for them. Yes, she replied softly. Again. She met their gazes one by one. You don't want me. You want relief. And relief that depends on my silence isn't peace. It's postponement. An elder stepped forward, voice trembling with controlled frustration. You're asking us to change everything. No, she said. I'm refusing to be the excuse you use not to. The land hummed faintly, not louder, not brighter, holding. The alpha stood at her side without touching her, presence steady and unmistakable. His voice carried without dominance. She will not be returning to the pack, he said. Not as property, not as symbol. Outrage flared. You're choosing her over us, someone shouted. He shook his head. I'm choosing truth over comfort. The words landed hard. Some turned away, angry. Some stayed, shaken. A few knelt, not in submission, but exhaustion. She did not soften. I'm not your solution, she said clearly. I'm your mirror. Silence followed. The crowd dispersed slowly, without closure. The attempt had failed. That afternoon, the elders made their decision. They summoned the alpha alone. She felt the shift immediately, the way dominance coiled tight beyond the stones, sharp with intent. This was not negotiation. This was consequence. He returned at dusk, expression controlled but pale beneath the surface. They've removed me, he said quietly. The words hung between them. Officially, he continued, they'll name a new alpha by dawn. Her chest tightened, not with guilt but recognition. That's the cost, she said. Yes, he replied, and I accept it. You didn't have to, she said. He met her gaze steadily. I did. The land hummed, low even. Witness again. They'll come for you without restraint now, he added. I no longer stand between you and them. She nodded once. I know. He hesitated, then did something unexpected. He bowed his head, not to her, but to the ground between them. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I know I haven't earned it. I only want you to know that I won't undo this choice." The words did not heal her, but they stopped the bleeding. "That matters," she said softly, "more than you realize." Night fell heavy and watchful. Beyond the boundary stones, movement shifted, sharper now, more desperate. The pack was no longer restrained by internal debate. Fear had chosen a direction. Her wolf rose, hackles lifting. "They'll come tonight." "Yes," she replied calmly, "and they won't ask." The alpha, former alpha, now straightened. "Then we prepare." She shook her head. "No, we don't fight." "What then?" he demanded. She placed her palm to the stone, feeling the old agreements stir. "We let the land decide whether it will still answer them." Understanding flickered in his eyes, fearful, awed. "They could lose everything," he said. "They already have," she replied. "They just haven't noticed yet." The forest grew unnaturally quiet as night deepened, stars sharpening overhead. Somewhere beyond the trees, the pack gathered, dominance building for one final attempt to reclaim what they believed was theirs. She stood centered and still, breath slow, heart steady, wanted by the entire pack, but no longer available to be taken. Forgiveness waited on the far side of this night, and it would not come cheaply. They came after moonrise, not as hunters this time, as a pack. She felt them before she saw them. The collective weight of bodies moving with purpose, dominance braided together not into a single command, but into a wall of insistence. Torches flickered between the trees, voices murmured, sharp with fear and resolve. This was not a rescue. This was reclamation. The former alpha stood beside her at the stone, shoulders squared, breath slow. He did not flare his presence. He did not attempt to command what no longer answered him. "They won't listen," he said quietly. "No," she agreed. "They've already decided." The land beneath her feet hummed, not louder, not brighter. Ready. The pack emerged into the clearing in a wide arc, stopping just short of the boundary stones. At their center stood the newly chosen alpha, a broad-shouldered warrior with eyes too sharp, dominance already spilling outward in aggressive waves. "She's ours," he declared, "by blood, by awakening, by right." The word right scraped against her nerves. "You forfeited that," she said calmly. A ripple of anger surged through the group. "You don't get to decide that," an elder snapped. "You are one wolf." She stepped forward until her toes brushed the stone. The land tightened subtly, clarifying the line. "I'm not deciding for you," she replied. "I'm deciding for me." The new alpha laughed, harsh and humorless. "You think this place will save you?" "I don't need saving," she said. "I need you to stop." His dominance surged harder, pressing against the boundary like a tide seeking weakness. The land did not push back. It simply did not answer. Confusion flickered across his face, then fury. "Advance," he commanded. The pack stepped forward as one and stopped, not slammed back, not thrown aside, stopped, as if the concept of forward had lost meaning the moment they crossed intent without consent. Murmurs broke out. "What's happening? Why isn't right?" She raised her voice, not loud but clear. "This ground does not recognize ownership," she said. "It recognizes honesty." The new alpha snarled. "This is witchcraft." "No," she replied. "This is consequence." She turned slowly, meeting faces she had grown up beside, wolves who had ignored her, dismissed her, then decided she was too valuable to lose. "You don't want me," she said. "You want what I prevent you from facing." A hunter stepped forward, desperation bleeding through bravado. "We're falling apart." "Yes," she agreed gently, "because you were built on silence." The pack surged emotionally now, fear, grief, anger colliding without direction. The land held. The former alpha stepped forward then, not crossing the boundary, but standing fully visible. "This ends tonight," he said evenly. The new alpha rounded on him. "You lost the right to speak." "I lost my title," he corrected, "not my voice." He turned to the pack. "You can't force her back without destroying what little trust you have left. And you know it." "She belongs to us," someone shouted. "No," he said firmly, "she never did." Silence cracked open. The new alpha growled and pushed harder, dominance flaring recklessly. That was the mistake. The land withdrew completely. Not violently, absolutely. The pressure vanished, not just here but behind them. The pack's collective dominance collapsed inward, leaving them exposed to themselves. Several wolves staggered, gasping, not injured, unmoored. The new alpha dropped to one knee, shock etched across his face. "What did you do?" She shook her head. "Nothing. I stopped holding it together for you." Panic rippled. An elder fell back, voice breaking. We didn't mean to hurt you. She believed them. That didn't excuse them. You don't get forgiveness because you're scared, she said softly. You get it when you stop. The moon climbed higher, pale and merciless. The pack stood fractured at the edge of ground that would no longer bend for them. At last, one by one, wolves began to step back. Not ordered, not commanded. Choosing. The new alpha remained kneeling, breath ragged. The former alpha looked at her, eyes dark with something like grief. It's over, he said quietly. Yes, she replied. For them. The clearing emptied slowly, torches dimming as fear gave way to exhaustion. By the time the last wolf disappeared into the trees, silence had reclaimed the space. She exhaled for the first time in hours. Her wolf settled beside her. They won't come again. No, she said, they can't. The former alpha remained standing, gaze fixed on the ground. They'll name this night a tragedy, he said. She looked at him steadily. They should name it a lesson. He nodded once. You lost everything, she continued, for standing here. Yes, he said, and I would do it again. The words did not heal her, but they mattered. The land hummed faintly, not approval, witness. Forgiveness hovered close now, but it had not yet crossed the boundary. The silence after the pack's retreat did not feel victorious. It felt exposed. She stood at the stone long after their scents faded, moonlight washing the clearing in pale silver. The land's hum softened, easing back into something quieter now that it was no longer being tested. The former alpha remained where he was, hands loose at his sides, posture steady without authority to support it. They won't forget this, he said at last. No, she replied. But forgetting was never the problem. He nodded slowly. They learned they can't take. That lesson will hurt, she said. They'll try to blame someone. His gaze lifted to her. They'll blame me first. She studied him carefully. You're ready for that? I already paid, he said simply. The truth of it settled heavy between them. She stepped away from the stone for the first time that night. The land did not tighten. It did not pull her back. Choice again. Her wolf watched closely. You don't need it anymore. No, she whispered, but it still matters. They moved deeper into the veil together, not fleeing, just leaving the boundary behind. The forest opened without resistance, branches parting easily, the ground firm beneath their feet. They did not speak for a long while. At a small rise overlooking the trees, she stopped. The moon hung high now, light spilling across old scars in the land, trails worn deep by generations of obedience, paths that had never questioned direction. I used to think forgiveness meant forgetting, she said quietly. Or excusing. He shook his head. It doesn't. No, she agreed. It means deciding what you carry forward. He waited, not daring to interrupt. When you rejected me, she continued, voice steady despite the memory tightening her chest, you didn't just choose the pack. You chose a version of power that required me to disappear. His jaw tightened. I know, and tonight, she went on, you chose to disappear instead. The words landed heavily. Yes, he said, and I won't pretend it makes us even. She met his gaze. It doesn't. The forest breathed around them, leaves whispering softly as the land listened, not intruding, not directing. Forgiveness, she said slowly, doesn't give you back what you lost. He swallowed. I don't expect it to. It gives me the freedom not to keep bleeding, she finished. The space between them tightened, not with dominance, but with honesty. Her wolf sat, tail curling around its paws. This is the moment. She exhaled, long and measured. I forgive you, she said. The words did not echo. They settled. He froze, breath catching as if struck. You. I forgive you, she repeated quietly. Not because you earned it tonight, but because I won't let what you did define the rest of my life. His knees buckled. He did not collapse. He knelt, slowly, deliberately, head bowed, hands resting against the earth. Not as an alpha, as a man who finally understood the weight of what he had asked her to carry alone. Thank you, he whispered. I don't deserve, she shook her head. This isn't about what you deserve. The land hummed faintly, not approving, not celebrating, releasing. When he rose, something in him had changed, not softened, not diminished, unburdened. What happens now? He asked quietly. She looked west, where the forest thinned and open ground waited beyond. Now, she said, I leave. He nodded, pain flickering briefly across his face. And I stay. Yes, she agreed, because that's your work. They stood together until the moon began its slow descent, neither reaching for what no longer belonged to either of them. At dawn, she turned away without ceremony. No watchers followed, no land pulled at her heels. She walked free, not wanted, not claimed, not forgiven into silence, forgiven into choice. Morning broke without ceremony. Light filtered through the trees in thin, pale bands, touching bark and leaf without favor. She walked west as promised, steps unhurried, breath steady, the weight she had carried for so long finally loosening its grip. Behind her, the veil did not call her back. That mattered. Her wolf padded beside her, posture easy now, no longer scanning for pursuit. "You're lighter," it observed. "Yes," she replied softly, "and I didn't know how heavy I was until it stopped." They crossed into open country by midday, rolling ground where grass bent easily under wind and scent carried far. Packs lived differently here. Boundaries were looser, authority negotiated rather than enforced. No one challenged her passage. Some watched, some nodded, most simply let her pass. That too mattered. The former alpha returned to the pack grounds alone. The aftermath of the night lingered like smoke, unsettled, acrid, unavoidable. Wolves gathered in small clusters, voices low and uncertain. The new alpha remained absent, having retreated after the collapse of his authority at the boundary. Eyes followed the former alpha as he crossed the clearing. Not with obedience, with curiosity. He stopped at the center where the ritual circle still lay dim and inert, runes cracked and powerless. He did not try to reactivate them. Instead, he spoke. "She is gone," he said evenly, "and she will not return." Murmurs spread. "You let her walk away," someone accused. "Yes," he replied. "We needed her." Another voice snapped. "No," he said firmly. "We wanted to use her." Silence pressed down, heavy and uncomfortable. "She forgave you," an elder said carefully. "Didn't she?" He closed his eyes briefly. "Yes." The elder nodded once. "Then you were given something rare." "Yes," he agreed. "And I won't waste it." He turned away from the circle and began dismantling what remained, pulling stones free, scattering symbols that no longer held meaning. No dominance flared to stop him. No one ordered him to continue. Some helped. She reached a river by dusk, wide, slow-moving, its surface reflecting sky more than trees. She knelt at the bank and dipped her fingers into the water. It flowed. No stilling, no answering hum. Relief washed through her so deeply it stole her breath. She laughed softly, the sound startling birds from nearby reeds. "Good," she murmured. Her wolf drank beside her, tail swishing lazily. "The world doesn't need you to hold it together anymore." "No," she agreed, "and I don't need it to prove I mattered." She followed the river for a time, then made camp beneath a lone tree whose roots curled protectively around stone. The fire she lit was small and practical. No ceremony, no watchers. As night fell, distant howls rose. Communication, not command. She listened without parsing meaning. For the first time, she didn't need to understand. Back at the pack grounds, change arrived quietly. Without a single alpha voice to follow, wolves began talking to each other. Decisions took longer. Conflicts flared, then cooled. Some left, some stayed, none were forced. The former alpha slept among them without privilege, sharing watch, sharing work. His authority did not vanish, but it changed shape, earned moment by moment. He did not look west. He did not ask whether she was safe. He trusted her choice. Weeks passed. She traveled farther than she ever had before, crossing lands where her name meant nothing. She traded labor for food, stories for shelter, silence for peace. Sometimes wolves asked where she came from. She answered simply, "Elsewhere." Sometimes they asked where she was going. She smiled, "Forward." The question stopped after that. One evening, standing on a ridge beneath a sky heavy with stars, she felt something stir, not pressure, not summons. Recognition, not from the land, from herself. She placed a hand over her chest, breathing into the space that had once ached with rejection, then burned with anger. It was quiet now, whole. Her wolf leaned against her leg. "You're not wanted anymore." She smiled, eyes stinging unexpectedly. "No, and that's freedom." "Yes," she whispered. The wind carried her scent away, scattering it across plains and rivers, no longer a signal to be tracked or claimed, just a presence passing through. Behind her, the pack learned, slowly, painfully, that forgiveness did not restore what had been broken. It transformed what came next. And ahead of her, the world opened wide, unclaimed and unwaiting, ready to be met on her terms alone. She reached the far edge of the plains as summer tilted toward autumn. Here, the lands stretched wide and unguarded, grass bowing easily to wind that carried no orders. Packs moved through this region in loose constellations, meeting, separating, reforming without ceremony. No stones marked authority. No banners claimed permanence. It felt unfinished, and for the first time in her life, that felt like safety. She slowed near a low rise where the earth dipped gently toward a lake fed by rain and snowmelt. The water reflected the sky so clearly it seemed the world had folded in on itself. She stood there for a long while, watching ripples distort the stars, then smooth again. Her wolf settled at her side, breathing deep. No one followed. "No," she replied, "because there's nothing to take anymore." They made camp without ritual. No circle, no invocation, no reaching outward. The fire burned small and steady. When she ate, it was because she was hungry. When she slept, it was because she was tired, not because the night demanded vigilance. In the quiet hours before dawn, she dreamed, not of pursuit, not of rejection, but of walking paths that had never been walked before. When she woke, there was no ache in her chest, no pressure in her bones, just readiness. Far behind her, the pack learned to live without the answer they had wanted. The elders did not regain their certainty. The new alpha did not reclaim his dominance. The former alpha did not seek redemption through spectacle. Instead, the pack learned to endure uncertainty, to argue without violence, to choose without coercion. It was slower, it was messier, it held. Stories shifted as they always did. In some tellings, she became a cautionary tale of power that slipped beyond control. In others, a myth of a wolf who broke the law by refusing to be owned. In none of them did they get her right, and that was fine. On the plains, she met wolves who knew nothing of her past and asked nothing of her future. She helped when she wanted. She left when she needed to. No one tried to make her stay. One evening, a young wolf asked her, "Were you ever important?" She smiled gently, "Once. And now? Now I'm free." The wolf nodded, satisfied, and ran off to join the others without another question. As autumn deepened, she felt no pull to return, no echo calling her back to places where forgiveness had been forged in fire. That work was finished. Forgiveness had done its job. It had released her. She stood at the lake one last time before moving on, the surface glassy and calm. She knelt and touched the water, not to test it, not to summon anything. It rippled and flowed on, indifferent and alive. She laughed softly. "Good," she murmured. Her wolf rose and shook out its coat, ready. Where to next? She lifted her gaze to the open horizon, where land and sky met without boundary or claim. "Anywhere," she said, "as long as it's mine to choose." They walked on as the sun crested the world, light spilling across a future that did not wait for permission. Behind her, the pack would remember a night when they wanted her badly enough to try to take her. But ahead of her lay something far rarer than being wanted, a life that did not require forgiveness to be lived. And as her footsteps faded into the tall grass and the wind erased her scent from the earth, the world finally understood the truth it had resisted for so long. She was never meant to be claimed. She was meant to walk away and leave power kneeling in the dust behind her.